There are many people who are tasked with making sure that no harm comes to a child. So who's the person who actually makes the call to the Child Protective Services Agency? Who makes that phone call?
You know, there are a lot of people that make the phone call. Anyone is required by law. If they have a concern for child abuse and neglect, they're required to make the call.
So mom, dad?
Mom, dad make the call, neighbors make the call, school officials make the call. You'll see teachers, guidance counselors, school nurses. You'll see medical professionals. You know, a lot of times a child falls off a playground piece of equipment, gets injured, mom rushes child to the hospital. The hospital will ask questions and try to figure out whether or not those medical injuries are consistent with the type of injury or the type of accident that's being described. And if not, they don't know yet, but they are early on in their investigation of the medical issues, and they will call CPS.
So once the investigation has been started, can, you know, if a mom made a phone call and said, hey, I think there's some abuse going on, can she then call the agency back and say, I'm all good. I feel really confident right now?
Well, she can certainly make her feelings about the situation known, but the fact that a parent recants a claim of child abuse or says, you know what, I think I'm done, I don't need you anymore, does not put the kibosh on it. Once the agency gets a phone call, they are required to allay their concerns by following their protocol. And that means they must go to the home, they must speak to a child who's verbal, they must observe a child who's nonverbal, they have to speak to children in the home and adults in the home that are 18 and older, and they have to minimally assess whether or not there is actual harm, imminent risk of harm, or substantial risk of harm. If you have actual harm or imminent risk of harm, they're required to remove without a court order. If there is substantial risk of harm, they may go to court. They may say the harm has been abated, or they may say the harm is ongoing and they need a protection plan in the home. But they have to do something. They can't simply say, well, mom told us she's not concerned anymore, so the fact that we went there and we have concerns means we can just go ahead and stop now because mom has it under control. It doesn't work that way.
No. So with everything that you're describing, and knowing that government can oftentimes work a little bit slower than we want them to, how long does an investigation like this even take?
Well, on paper, the right answer is 60 days. The agency.
In actuality?
In actuality, it really depends. What we normally see is if the allegation is something that, if proven true, certainly constitutes abuse or neglect, they're usually going to take their full 60 days. They're going to give themselves that time to allay all concerns. If it's something that would not constitute abuse or neglect, even if everything alleged is true, they will typically come out, rule it out, and close it out relatively quickly, 30 days. You know, neighbor calls and says mom and dad are beating the child. Child doesn't have any bruises, mom and dad have a beautiful home, and neighbor is found to be anxious and upset because of a dispute between the neighbors. They'll usually close that out right away. The more ambiguous cases, the cases that drag on and on and on, are cases where there are concerns, but the concerns may or may not be child abuse. And they can't tell that right away, so they often will get a mental health professional to do a psychological evaluation. Maybe there are substance issues in the home. They'll get a substance abuse evaluation. They'll look for something else. And those third-party contracted providers, those professionals that have to do assessments, you need time to book their appointments. You need time to have them confer with the agency to write reports. And that usually takes longer than 60 days. And in those scenarios, the local office manager can extend the 60-day requirement.